we're going to get the analysis now of a former Scotland Yard detective and former head of Lambeth in London's Missing Persons Unit. That is Mick Neville. Welcome to the programme, Mick. I think the question on everybody's lips this morning is why on earth did it take 3 weeks to find a body that was just a mile away from the primary school where she dropped off her children?
I know, and this is really tragic, isn't it? And that is a really legitimate question to ask, because the public have seen people riding up and down there with sonar machines, they've seen helicopters and the rest of it. And from day one on this inquiry, when I was asked about it, I referred to the tragic case of Anthony Knott, who was the fireman who went missing in a river in Sussex. And it took 21 days for his body to be found in very similar circumstances. Now, so there's been all sorts of bold statements being made about the bodies not in the river, but rivers are very, very difficult things to search. You know, and in the Alice Gross murder, some of my super recogniser officers identified where the suspect had entered a towpath, and the river had to be searched again. It had been searched once, and that's when they found the body. So it's very, very difficult. But I think that it's got to, once this inquiry is concluded, there's got to be some checks onto why this happened. As I said, Mr. Knott was 8 miles downstream. This is just 1 mile. And as I said, the public have seen all these things. They've seen all these police officers. And in the end, it's somebody who appears to have been out with their dog on a Sunday morning walk who's found a body. It doesn't seem good enough, does it?
Why do the police not say it is the body of a female or the rough age of the person involved? Why is there no detail at all about even the sex of this body?
I mean, it's really an awful thing to say, but when a body's been in the water for that time, it's very difficult to ascertain very much about it, apart from it being a human at the moment. So there no doubt may be some clothing and all sorts of ways of making identifications, be that DNA or teeth or items on this body will be being used. And I'm sure it's been done in the most sensitive way, because, of course, that is somebody's mum, somebody's partner, somebody's daughter, well, we assume. And so that will all be being done, but they can't say that at the moment because of the awfulness of being in water for a long time.
The papers are reporting this morning that a man was heard telling the first response officer, there is a body down there, it's the body of a woman, there's definitely a body down there. Obviously, the police couldn't confirm that, but interesting to hear that the walker seemed pretty convinced of the gender, at least, of the body.
You know, the thing is, Mick, though, at least if it is Nicola, you know, that's not been confirmed, but if it is Nicola, at least this is some sort of closure for the family. I mean, I'm sure you've been involved in cases where bodies have never been discovered.
You're absolutely right, Eamon, and that was my I said my little prayer for these children who've been waiting for the mum to come back, and at least there's something. The worst case scenario is of course, if there is no body, and it leaves people with all sorts of hopes, and people, you know, we all know the Madeleine McCann case, and going back to the first point, the gentleman who found the body may have seen some clothing and whatever, but you can't work on assumptions. You know, the police will, you know, this is a very difficult case, and they'll have to confirm things 100% before they might start making statements, because, as I've already discussed, there's been experts who've been making very bold statements about bodies not being in rivers. The public, then this has led to all sorts of weird and wonderful conspiracy theories, and it can't be done again. They've got to be 100% sure before messages are sent out.
Yeah. And this expert that you're referring to, we've actually got him coming on later on in the programme and making those bold statements. I mean, what would your message be to him? Because there's been lots of criticism, hasn't there, that he gave false hope to the family, that he undermined the police investigation. The police arguably been vindicated, haven't they? They always said her body was in the river, and they were right.
Well, the trouble is here, I think, the police could claim to have been vindicated, but, again, it's left to dog walk. And as far as Mr. Foldling's concerned, I suppose he would say, I wasn't given the full facts. If he had been given the facts that, she had some mental health issues and the like, without all the gory details that me, you and Eamon and anybody else doesn't really need to know about why those mental health issues were, Mr. Faldlin will no doubt say he would have searched further down that river. But I'll say from day one, this idea that somebody falls in a river and stays where they are, I couldn't understand that, because it's not a swimming pool. It's a moving body of river. And as we said, we've seen several cases in the last few years where bodies have been moved down there. And of course, I'm sure there's been an expert who will tell you how far it would go. And of course, there's all these reeds that things get caught up in. So I think he must be very regretful of what he said. But as I say, that he will rightfully say that Lancashire Police didn't give him full details. And these are things that have got to be looked into once the investigation is concluded, and lessons must be learned from this, because it's just not good enough.
As I understand it, Mick, I think he was alluding to the fact that it's a tidal river, so that what goes down is then pushed back up again, and it's sort of a net zero movement. It tends to be over a long period of time.
I don't know any river that's a net zero. They eventually flow to the sea, don't they? So I don't know if he's trying to say that it's been pushed down and pushed up. I really don't think that's the case. I'm guessing, because I'm no river expert, I can only go off previous cases, that it's been caught up in those reeds, and it's been caught up for a long time. But I think making bold statements just didn't help, because it just fueled the conspiracy theories. But then the police didn't help themselves by, some of the press releases. I think the biggest criticism for me in all this is the way the police have handled the press, by one saying at the very start that she was, just an average person, no issues, and then suddenly coming out with, there was a domestic incident which somehow implied the partner was involved, and then having to clarify it by telling us these, as I've alluded to, these dreadful details about mental and physical health that simply were unnecessary to release. And if she had been hiding away somewhere, would have made her less likely to come back.
Yeah.
So
those comments by the police picked up on by the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, by Sir Keir Starmer, and the Information Commissioner looking into that because of the concern that has been raised. But Mick, really interesting to get your thoughts this morning. And I suppose at the heart of all of this, we just have to say and pay tribute to the family as they're going through an incredibly difficult time, and everybody's thoughts very much on those two little girls this morning. Mick Neville, thank you.